With the rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, we, as a part of Youth in Action, aim to educate others about a subcategory of Asian American activism, microaggressions, and how to handle them.
What are microaggressions? A microaggression is a statement, action, or incident that stems from indirect and subtle discrimination against members of a marginalized group. They can be through a comment, gesture, or insult, or asking offensive questions. Although they are not extremely aggressive, it has been proven that they cause harm over time. Microaggressions in terms of racism. Microaggressions are most commonly used to discriminate against people of color. Microaggressions may stem from underlying racist beliefs, commonly held stereotypes, misunderstandings, or malicious intent. It has the potential to cause notable cognitive, behavioral, and emotional consequences.
Even though, unfortunately, many forms of microaggressions exist, there are several forms that are the most prominent. Some common categories of racial microaggressions in general include things related to intelligence, denying experiences and the reality associated with race in the modern world, denial of experience or culture, making judgments about belonging, and among others. Some specific examples of these microaggressive beliefs include the association of high-income jobs with only certain races, immediately assuming one to be an immigrant when they do not appear to be of white descent, or following someone in a store just because you subconsciously associate criminality with their race. Next, we will see several examples of microaggressive memes in pop culture. This is one example, and this is also another example.
The most common forms of microaggressions would be in snide comments meant to be racist but not warranting huge backlash. They affirm the beliefs of the speaker without consequence to the speaker. These would be comments and jokes on appearance, manner of speaking, and strange and outcast behaviors, ways of life, and cultural quirks or niches, which isolate an Asian American as a foreigner. The most common form is making stereotypical racist jokes, such as how Asians are bad drivers, them having small eyes, them eating dogs, imitating their language, etc. It can also come in the form of asking uncomfortable or offensive questions, which oftentimes stem from ignorance. For example, common questions include, where are you really from? Are you from name of Asian country? Or can you speak English? These comments assign Asian Americans to stereotypes, cookie-cutter people that do not fit the descriptions of many Asian Americans. Oftentimes, it also automatically assigns competencies based on race. Additionally, it becomes hard for the Asian individual to speak up about these occurrences since they are regarded as jokes and simple chatter.
However, there are several ways to approach the issue of someone act that way towards you. First off, do not call them racist or use a negative term towards them. A lot of the time, people do not realize it or do it unintentionally. Going with the intention of educating them, not responding with malice. Number one, you could give them something to read instead. This could reduce conflict or unnecessary arguments. Number two, depending on the situation, you can let it go. Use your own sense of judgment to decide if a response is necessary, because the response to their remark may not always be the best solution. For instance, if the person saying it to you is one who carries no personal significance to you, it may not matter to you in the long term as compared if it's relative or friend said the remark to you. Number three, responding immediately. Allow it to be called out and have its impact explained while the event remark is fresh in everyone's mind. Moreover, educate yourself on marginalized group as well in order to understand the experiences of others. Read blogs and personally essay to get a sense of what their experiences are like so you can empathize.
Additionally, you could inform them about how much Asians have contributed to this country to raise appreciation instead of hatred. For instance, Asians have directly contributed to the development of atomic science, farmers' working rights, the creation of the USB, and YouTube are just to name a few. Also, America in its entirety is a very diverse country. Perhaps with that approach, you could show them to have appreciation for the contributions that Asian Americans have brought to the US without being overly aggressive. However, always prepare for the other person to be defensive, but explain how their comment made you uncomfortable. Moreover, in Asian culture, it is often hard to speak up about these things, as it is a cultural thing to not acknowledge certain problems, or not speak up and keep it inside, but instead, do the opposite. If you would like to know more about microaggressions and how you can help combat them, please use the links below to receive further information. Now, we will hear from several Asian Americans who will explain how microaggressions have affected them personally.
In last year's math class, my teacher asked us a question. 3 of my Chinese friends answered it wrong. Finally, she asked me, and I also got it wrong. She said something around the lines of, "I thought y'all were better than that." With the comment being directed towards me and my Chinese friends, it was stereotyping that all Asians are good at math. Hearing something like this got me pissed because it made me feel like she was being susceptible to the harmful stereotypes of Asians. Although the comment stuck out to me, she was a teacher and I couldn't really do much about it. In this case, and in the future, I would let instances like these slide in order to avoid elevating a situation. Moreover, in the media, there's often portrayals of Asian Americans in stereotypical ways as well as several racially motivated jokes. These representations of Asian Americans in the media are often slightly insulting and derogatory towards Asian Americans in general, and personally, I feel like it heavily contributes to the stereotype that still surrounds us today. For instance, teenage TV shows in the past often portrayed Asians as a nerd who only participates in the stereotypical extracurriculars and often is socially awkward for comedic purposes. This is just an example, but it is not uncommon to see portrayals like these in the media. It is extremely unrepresentative of the entire population and just adds to the harmful stereotypes.
Third grade, some delinquent kid at my table group, ironically also Asian, but not Chinese, I think he was Korean or something, started squinting his eyes like this, pulling their corners down like this, and saying Chinese in a distorted Chinese accent. I personally thought it was funny. I had ignored the word in my mind. I only saw the funny face and the funny accent and did it right along with him like this. I don't think anyone else did the same thing at my table though. When I got home, I told my mom what I interpreted as a funny story. My mom then told me that he was actually being racist. So a solution to this is, I personally think that most third graders don't care about issues like racism yet. So I'd probably just try to contradict his beliefs about the accent and the facial expressions, maybe try expanding my eyes and changing the accent when I said Chinese, or telling him that one of my Chinese friends doesn't seem like that at all. My approach would be very subtle though, since the kid was very prone to anger and I don't want him to blow up in front of me. If this happened in school today, it would be a very different story. I would likely feel too nervous to speak up and just stand there staring into the void, but if I was confident enough to do so, I would say "excuse me" in an extremely condescending, Karen-like tone towards them, and then I'd leave. By leaving after I made that comment, I would be able to de-escalate the situation, but also let them know that what they said wasn't very good in a very non-confrontational way, but confrontational in just 1 second, and then I leave to de-escalate. Hopefully they'll be able to rethink their words and realize that what they said could be interpreted as offensive, and it probably is.
Just 2 months ago, my Chinese classmates and I were eating and chatting during the lunch break. Someone threw carrots at us about halfway through the lunch break. I warned them at once, but they did not stop and made some insulting remarks. My friend stood up and went to them. He is a very emotional person, and I worried that they will fight. I took him to find the teacher. They had already escaped when we came back, and the teacher did not hold them accountable, not even trying to find them. This led me feel that our school, or maybe just the teacher, did not pay enough attention to Asian discrimination, which made me very disappointed at that time. In this situation, I chose to find the teacher and did not argue or fight with them, but I think there is a better way to solve it. In the future, I will inform them that their behavior has already formed racial discrimination and remember their looks. Then look for the teacher and let the teacher punish them.
I used to live in the Midwest, and especially in such a small city, diversity in terms of ethnicity was very uncommon. I occasionally encountered several instances where people either asked me uncomfortable questions or made assumptions about me due to my race. They were small things like, "Your English is so good," or "You're not from around here, right?" or "Do your parents speak English?" or "That looks weird," in reference to food. In those situations, I was always uncomfortable, but I didn't really know what to say. Looking back on it though, I definitely could have applied some of the solutions we have for microaggressions. For example, the main point to keep in mind is the fact that most of the people who said things like that did so out of ignorance. They simply just weren't used to ethnic diversity. Then for other things, such as people asking me where I'm from, I could emphasize how I actually am American since I'm a citizen, and how nationality is different than ethnicity. For all these situations, though, it's often hard to tell whether or not someone's comment had malicious intent, so it's better to approach their comment with the intent of educating them rather than responding with malice.
It's undeniable that microaggressions can severely perpetuate underlying racist beliefs as well as lead to other problems for individuals.
That's why it's extremely important for not just certain groups, but for all races to understand the detrimental effects that microaggressions carry,
as well as how they can damage one's self-identity and pride in their culture. Being a member of any ethnicity is something that one should always take pride in.
As Asian Americans, our rich culture, diverse languages, and cultural traditions are definitely things that we should be proud of. For this reason, Asian American activism is of the utmost importance, as we work together with others to reduce the negative stereotypes surrounding people of color in general, allowing them to carry the well-deserved pride in their respective culture.